Okay, I think we will start. And hello, everyone, and welcome to the WTiN webinar hosting us. Today we have with us Kirby Best, the chairman of OnPoint Manufacturing, a distinguished Kornit customer. We have Daniel Gazit, the vice president and general manager for the direct fabric at Kornit Digital. Ricardo Nava, our direct-to-fabric sales manager in Kornit America, and myself, Sharon Donovich, the regional product marketing manager in Europe, and I'm going to be the host of our distinguished speakers. Today we are going to talk about 10 reasons to bring production back home. I'm sure that it will be a very interesting subject to many people, especially today. And what we will start with is actually talking about the structure of the textile industry today. And I would like to ask Daniel Gazit to talk us through the existing structure of the textile industry. So, Danny?
So first of all, hi to everyone. Glad you can join us in these times. When we look at the industry today, it's been going on for quite a long time in more or less the same structure, although recently things have started to change. We all know about the size or the length of processes that we're going through in the textile industry, where delivery takes 3 to 6 months, which is adjusted to more or less the market or the old four-season way to look at the market. Multiple stations in multiple continents going back and forth, which includes both shipping, which is time, customs, which is becoming more and more difficult, and regulation, which is becoming more and more difficult, especially these days. For those of us who are trying to get stuff over borders in the recent 2 months. And of course has a huge implications on sustainability. Just maritime shipping is probably one of the most polluting activities there are today in the world, together with air flight. This requires large quantities in order for it to make sense even in shipping and in working in that type of structure. The question becomes, what happens when something breaks? And I think we had a very good example of it in the last months in the world and in the industry today. Just looking at Bangladesh for a second, $3.17 billion worth of inventory canceled. That's more than 1% of the whole GDP of Bangladesh. And it's sitting there in warehouses, which just been manufactured on a regular flow, but not passed forward because everything stopped at a single state. When we ask people around the world, large fashion industries, 70% are saying that the biggest problem or one of the biggest challenges that they have today is accurate demand planning. And this, I think, is a classic example of it. I'm not even talking about the day after, where we need to reinitiate orders and half the industry in those places is in problems to do that because of debts. Now the question is, how does the future look like? Regarding time to market, regarding inventory keeping, not to mention sustainability and the effects of it.
Yeah, and thank you, Danny, because definitely sustainability is one of the key factors when we're talking about reshoring. And I wanted to ask you, Kirby, about sustainability and how do you see this item, this subject?
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me. I'm really honored to be here. So we kind of look at sustainability broken down into two areas. The business model, is it sustainable? And of course, the environmental side, is that sustainable? And I think as hard and as tough and as sad as COVID-19 is, it's given us this opportunity, this very unique opportunity to examine the industry, to examine the supply chains, to examine our accounting, and to really look and see if we can reset it. It's a wake-up call. When we look at the business model side, I just think anybody who thought that what we were doing before was sustainable, it just wasn't right. the waste that we create in this industry is horrendous, and we need new models. We need different ways to look at things. I look at it from the environmental side, and if you Google how many gallons of water it takes to make a pair of jeans, they get, I think the answer is about 1,600 gallons. If you look at the transportation and the waste that we do in that, if you look at all the things, all the areas that we waste money and time on, that it's just not a sustainable business model. So that's the first side. I came into the industry from the environmental side. I grew up in the camping world and was a canoe guide in the Boundary Waters and north of Toronto. And so I just cherish our environment, and I cringe at what we're doing to it. And I look at the different models, and I will be blunt that although I'm on the on-demand team, I definitely see we need for the on-the-shelf model to coincide nicely with the on-demand side. So we just look at it and go, the model, the business model, just isn't sustainable because of the length of time it takes, because of the multiple handling, the multiple touches that we have of it, the returns, the markdowns, the inventory. I think you look at the amount of things we destroy. You read about Burberry and how many garments they burned a few years ago. You just go, this is not sustainable. And I love that we should have a goal of zero waste. I don't think that is possible. There will always be offcuts. There will always be, things wasted, but I think we can minimize that. So from a sustainability picture, I think we've got to re-examine our core values and take a hard look at it. And now's the time. And I also think in the accounting world, we have a tendency to silo every bit of the accounting and not look at the big picture. And, I'm a big advocate that the cost per unit is a very important metric, but the more important metric is the cost per unit sold. And I think we've got to develop new ways to look at things and to examine. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Danny, can you add more?
Yeah, so just to add to that, and the statistics are staggering. When you look at garments not sold in the world, that's about 30% of everything that reaches the stores. When you look at garments that are sold in discount because inventories were not done correctly, that's another 30%. The amount that gets burned or landfilled because of those reasons and because of the fast turnaround and the leftovers is a garbage truck of textile every second, more or less, in the world. That's huge. Now, the brands are conscious of that. And we see a change today, both in the customer's vision and where they want to go, and in the brand. You look at H&M, conscious lines. You look at Zara, Joy in Life, focusing about the zero hazardous materials with strong plans for the next years of how to create that. That's one side. But the other side is that there is money behind that. When you ask today about sustainability, 73% of millennials, that's Nielsen, that's a quote from Nielsen, 73% of millennials today are willing to pay more for sustainable product. There is about 35% of them that are willing to pay more than 10% on top of the regular price for sustainable products. Sustainability today is becoming an important factor.
Yeah. And talking about the millennials and the new generation, that takes at least me to the e-commerce, because I see my daughters are completely online with shopping. Kirby, can you share your experience with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think looking at the consumer habits right now is so important. I've switched over almost 100% to online shopping now, more because of a convenience side, and there's too many other things to be doing than spending my time shopping. So I do it all online. I think that I'm seeing a trend towards people buying fewer items, but of higher quality. And the trend towards buying things that they really want to keep, and less of the fast fashion where they buy it and they wear it once and they throw it out. They want to buy a quality product and they want to keep it for a longer period of time. And I love seeing stuff like that. I think that's really important for us. But e-commerce, I think we'll get into a little bit of the whole digital workflow, and that feeds into e-commerce so nicely that that's going to be a very important part going forward.
Right. I think into that, if you are going to the next reason, social media, and you mentioned that as well, that everybody's like going online. So not only in e-commerce, but also in social media. So Ricardo, I know that you have some thought about social media and how it is tied to e-commerce as well.
Sure, Sharon, thank you. And again, thanks to everyone for joining. I don't think none of us would have guessed, I don't know, a few years ago what social media was gonna do to just the impact on fashion or our textile industry among all the industries, right? I mean, social media was just initially thought as a way for people to stay together, stay connected, interact, exchange pictures and videos, etc. But in the last few years, and this is accelerating even more, it's just surprising, right? But it's just taking over how people start getting influence, or people are influencing industries and making just so they can make different buying decisions. And one statistic I was reading in an article last week is that close to 86% or over 85% of women use social media for purchasing advice. I thought, just before they go buy, they go check to see what's people doing, what people are wearing, and I think it's a huge impact. So it's growing. It's not going anywhere. I don't think there's going to be anything that takes over that. And another staggering or surprising fact is that almost half of the millennials now, anywhere from 22 to 37 years old, they say that the social media sites are the first place they go to get clothing ideas. So they before they even go to a brand on the internet or to an e-commerce website or to a store, what can I buy? First thing half of them, they go to the social media to see what people are doing. So again, this is huge influence, and I think as a business, as an industry, this is important to look at the impact of social media. And now more and more brands are paying influencers crazy amounts of money, right? I mean, like Kim Kardashian or Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo. They have millions of followers, but they're getting paid between $200,000 and $750,000 for a post. Just brands, right? So they can say, hey, you do a post, we pay you this much. It's a great advertising. It's very niche. It's very focused and centralized. So I think it's been brilliant the way that market, and I think it's going to continue, right? The marketing, the influencers, and almost 60% now of the fashion and beauty companies engage and work with these marketing influencers. Now there's marketing companies targeting to the influencers and so forth. So again, I don't see how that's going to go away. I think there's going to continue to be a great impact for how people do business, how people things turn into fashion. Instead of going to brands, they're looking at the social media, friends, family, and obviously influencers. So I think that leads to another important point, that is the self-expression, which is related to the social media, Sharon.
So maybe Danny, you can relate us between like the social media, do the relation between social media and self-expression. I know that it's coupled together.
Actually, I think that even e-commerce is coupled into that. And when you look at the time frame that we're in right now and what happens in the world today, we can see that e-commerce companies, in our industry. And this is, a long list of our customers that are operating in that world are seeing a huge increase in volume. My dad, which is not a young guy, is doing his shopping online now. So the inflection point of moving between regular brick and mortar to online is right now happening. And when you look at self-expression, which is a very strong driver of how this thing has been going on for a while, and the future of it, it's quite amazing. Let's look at the speed that things are moving at. Self-expression at its best probably, was the word of the year in Times Magazine 5 years ago. 5 years ago, it looks like it was yesterday. That's when it started. Today, the leader of the free world, Donald Trump, is managing or expressing himself on Twitter and everybody's following. So it's all about self-expression today and the individual who does that. There's a famous saying, there are hints to who you are and what you wear. So if I come with a t-shirt or someone else comes with a suit, it says a lot about who he is and what he wants to convey as a message coming from him. When I look at my daughter today, she will not wear a brand logo t-shirt of Levi's or Gap or whatever. She wants something which is personalized towards her. I think that, when we look at statistics, Ricardo, maybe you remember those, in personalization. Today, most companies, 94%, see personalization as a critical factor in their future success.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sharon.
No, I wanted to ask you. You wanted to mention something?
Well, yeah, just to add to what Danny was saying, that typically, again, especially the young folks, right? Like most of the millennials out there, Gen Z, when I say most of them, I say over 3/4 of them, when they go into the statistics and surveys, they, like Danny was saying, would they rather buy something that everybody has? It's normal, it's the standard, but no. The answer is they're more interested in buying products that are personalized or that are different, either made to themselves or to their taste or made specifically to them. Which I think what Kirby was saying with, and just the automation and things that are the e-commerce, people will more and more want something that is just made to them. And I think that there was another statistic where it says that these type of consumers, are over 25% of consumers are willing to pay more for a personalized product. I don't know exactly how much more. That's something that it depends on the industry or market, but that's significant. If people are willing to pay more for something that is their own, I think that obviously is going to change the way that supply chain, the brands and everything else. So self-expression is really becoming something really unique, interesting in this market. And I know Kirby is a big advocate of that. I learned a lot from him.
But Sharon, tying it back to the supply chain, my question would be, or to manufacturing at home, is how do we supply personalized demand? That I think is the toughest question that is coming from all this discussion.
Yeah, and I think no one can answer better than Kirby about customization. Kirby, can you share your knowledge, information, and thought about customization?
I would love to. It's kind of my favorite topic. So we break customization down into 3 categories. The first category is sizing and fit. And we have this expression that fit is not a, what is it? Fit is not a sizing issue. It's an inventory issue. And, if you start to think about it, we can fit anybody, but nobody wants to carry that much inventory. So that's where the on-demand model comes in. And we'll talk a little bit more about the fit. The next one is the personalization. And this is personalization more in the construction of the garment, whether you want a pocket here, or whether you want a longer or shorter, or one sleeve a little longer than the other, or if you wear a watch, you might want a cuff a little bigger than another one. That's the personalization. And then really the most exciting thing to come along to this industry is what you guys are doing at Kornit, and that's the printing. And it's, I think it's going to change everything, and we're really excited to be part of it. And so that's going to change, and I just think it is the ultimate to be able to print exactly what you want on a garment, whether it is a photograph, whether it's the color that you want, the exact hue of that color. It's just going to open things up. I want to go back a little bit and have a little fun with sizing. We talk about sizing. We break sizing down into 4 kind of categories right now. Today, the traditional sizing of dresses coming in 2, 4, 6, 8, and I do love to poke the industry. I go, well, where's 3, 5, and 7? And there's always some sort of excuse on, well, that's misses sizes or not. And I go, it's still on my ruler, the 2, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we came up with micro sizing because we make everything one off. All we have to do is create a size, and it's all done by computers through Gerber technology. But now we make a 2, a 2.5, a 3, a 3.5, and a 4, and so on and so forth, which is changing things. And that led us down to the idea of, could we generate, and we've experimented with 40 million patterns per dress, and then doing a massive sort of the patterns. So we use cluster computing to auto-generate the 40 million patterns, and then we use a sequence to use your measurements to pick the exact one to fit, whether it's a bust, waist, hip, whether it's a height issue, or what we call the Dolly Parton issue, a diagonal issue, where we can pick a much larger top to a smaller size hip. And then, of course, MTM, and there's a few people working on it. We love what Gerber's doing. But you now combine that ability with what Kornit's doing on the printing and the availability of content out in the marketplace now, and you're developing products that we've only dreamed of being able to do that. And we're working with one customer, and it kind of reminded me of going into an ice cream shop, of having, many, many flavors, and somebody picking vanilla. And she had been looking at this, and we were advocating, fabulous photographs of nature, such as a peacock feather or a butterfly wing. And she said, can you print it red? And it just kind of took us back, and I'm going, of course, we can print it any color of red. And it just kind of opened up a floodgate of creativeness that she wanted to now bring to her dresses. And so what you guys are doing is just so needed and so exciting to change this industry.
And we have a question here, because it's completely relevant, because someone has asked, how can e-commerce be sustainable if people have to buy a similar dress and then you have to return it because it does not fit? And you just answered that because you are fitting it exactly to the right fit, and then there's no sustainability and no return issue because it's tailored, it's customized to the. So I hope that's. Do you have anything to add about why this makes it more sustainable and more a better product?
I do. I think, it's all tied together, as Danny said earlier, that, the whole, every aspect of what we're talking about today really ties together. It's almost like the Olympic rings, they all overlap. And I just think that the idea of personalizing a dress, customizing the color of it, and making it exactly the way you want it to fit, and doing it fast. The old adage of I want it my way and I want it now is so prevalent out in the industry. And together, the collaboration of these firms, we're now going to be able to offer that. So it's just such an exciting time for the industry. And I think we'll see dramatic changes in some of the numbers. On our own products that we experiment with, we're seeing a return rate of about 0.5%, which
Wow.
you compare to the industry and you go, oh my goodness, you know, it's night and day difference. Now,
Yeah.
guys, don't get me wrong. We shank the odd one where, you know, we missed the mark on it, but we're getting better and better. And every day there's kind of an improvement and a refinement, and it won't be long before we have it down pat.
Wow. So I wanted, to take us to the next subject, which is the profitability, and ask Danny, people might be, it's a completely tailored product, how it could be profitable?
So first of all, this is a classic question on bringing production back home. The reason production left home was profitability, was manpower. And the question becomes then, will going local be more expensive? In some places, yes. When we're doing huge quantities, very large one-off, very large batches of same, and there's an added value in the way it works today. But the larger and larger part of the industry is going exactly the other direction. What Kirby just said and the question that was asked is extremely relevant. If return rates today in shops are around 30%, and return rates on custom-made or one-offs, as Kirby just said, in his experience, and it's not only his experience, we see it in other customers also, it's suddenly in single digit or in some places even fractions of a digit, then even this has effect on profitability. And we'll talk about time to market and manpower and inventory in a second. But those issues affect profitability. A research that came out last week is clearly saying that if you don't go into nearshoring and automation, you're not going to be able to survive in the long run. And there was a wake-up call. There was a red flag lifted on it just in the previous month. And we saw it ourselves in what is happening in the industry today. And profitability is possible with the technology, with the processes, and we'll talk about printing in a second, but with other processes also. Today, in what we're doing, and the way the industry is built and the technology is built, to do that in a profitable way. In the end, there's a very, very important point here. Speed is money. Inventory is money. Simple process and less labor is money. Demand and supply, as opposed to supply and demand, is money. And all of those are profits.
Ricardo, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, just, about a year ago, I met Kirby in New Jersey. And it was a great experience just to meet him for the first time and just hearing his concept about his business model, where to me was kind of the first time I was talking to someone, live, wanting to do something where, we talk about the social media, we talk about e-commerce, we're talking about customization, and Kirby wanted to put everything together, right? It kind of like those Olympic rings. And by doing that, obviously you want to reduce the inventory, you want to fast delivery. I remember the first thing he says, Ricardo, I want to print, it was like 2.3 dresses a minute or something like that. 10. So I was like, okay, let's get a seatbelt on here. So I think just getting all those trends and knowing where the industry is going and getting all those pieces together, feeding the right way, and just that's going to help you be more profitable at the end, right? Just customization, a great website, e-commerce, easy to make people to buy in a very easy way, be able to customize their dress, their shirt in an easy way, etc. All these things that Danny said and Kirby, it's what really going to make the new businesses profitable, less manpower. And another thing that Kirby, one of the first things you mentioned is that I want automation. I want less labor. So obviously he knew what he was doing, and the time to market. So he was getting ready for
So time to market is definitely a challenge. It doesn't sound reasonable to do a complete customized product and still be on the time that the customer is expecting. So Kirby, how do you do that?
Okay, we have a program that we call 333, and people just cringe when I bring it up, but I've watched now many of our customers, and they're on average about 12 months from the time that they've finished the base pattern to the time that it gets on their shelf. And so our 333 program is, I want to get it to 3 months, then I want to get it to 3 days, and then I want to get it to 3 minutes. Now that won't be to a physical shelf, that'll be to an electronic shelf. So we believe that's what's going to be necessary. You know, in the book industry, we created this wonderful firm called Lightning Source, and we were delivering books in 6 weeks. And today we deliver books in less than 12 hours, or we ship books in less than 12 hours. So if you order by 6 o'clock tonight, it gets printed and bound and shipped by 4:30 the next morning. We have to do the same thing in the garment industry. We have to be able to do it in minutes rather than months. And so that's our whole focus. And I'll poke my friends over at Gerber, because when I bring up 3, 3, and 3 and I want it done in 3 minutes, they just go, you've lost your mind. But they now listen a little bit more, and they get it. There's a wonderful person over there, Karsten Newberry, who got it about 3 years ago, and I've watched him push it. And it's Ricardo, as you and I have talked about many times, we now know that we can produce in this factory about 2.3 dresses a minute, meaning 2.3 dresses are coming out the back end when we're fully staffed and fully operational. And we needed your press to be able to meet that sort of sewing capacity, and you guys did it. And Sharon, when we first met, you were the one who said, this is the press you want to look at, and it load levels our plant, and we've now done the drawings on plant number 2, and we will double the capacity in the same amount of space, and that's why we'll need double the presses, which you'd be happy about.
Yeah. So I wanted to go to the next reason that we're talking about, and it's manpower, Ricardo. So we know that manpower in different locations could be a problem, and so on. What is the manpower relation to reshoring?
Well, yeah, the manpower relation, I think is something that it's especially after COVID-19, but that we've seen this push in the manufacturing process for the last few years, even more, reduce of manpower. Or how do you do that? It's definitely not an easy task, but I think the first way you start looking at reducing the costs and the manpower, it's by looking at your supply chain or looking at your manufacturing process, and where can you eliminate other processes? Processes in the textile industry, such as pre-treating fabrics, post-treating, using other machinery or equipment to soften material, or treat it with certain chemicals to be able to print on it, etc. So eliminating those processes it gives you more streamlined efficiency. It also eliminates, obviously, labor. And one thing I learned also from Kirby is, obviously, the more, and David, the more people you have in a process, the more chances you have that things can go exactly the way you want it, or more errors can happen. So that, obviously, at the end is just less cost on production and reducing the manpower, obviously. So I think, obviously, automation or technology is going to really help the reduction of manpower. Technology now is really at our hands, very close to us. It gets better and better every year. And I know, Kirby, you don't like the word microfactory. It's a term that it's used a lot in the textile industry, but obviously the true microfactory is really a utopia, but it's just a concept where you really want to be able to reduce the manpower, streamline the manufacturing process, where you can have the less steps possible during that process. You know, you want to simplify it, automate it, eliminate some pre and post treatment processes, nesting jobs, batching jobs, order management, barcoding systems, and then cutting. You know, like Kirby was saying with Gerber. So any cutter that will bring that automation and cutting at the end of your job or your printing job. So again, so I think that is going to eliminate the manpower, and it's really an important factor for success and reduction of labor.
Yeah, and another point that was another reason for reshoring is definitely the inventory that you mentioned before, Kirby. And can you also elaborate on that? I know that you touched that, but inventory is a huge risk today, and we see what's going on, especially today in this uncertain times and COVID-19 and everything. So can you touch base about inventory and what's your point of view on inventory?
Get rid of it. No, I'm just I couldn't resist that one. Inventory is such a swamp to get into, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And it seems to be almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, where as you start to grow, you get more inventory. More inventory requires more warehouses, and it just goes on and on and on. And it's a horribly insidious issue that we all face, particularly when you see how much gets either marked down or destroyed or pulped or whatever happens. And we watch this in the book industry where, and this comes back to my concept of accounting being so siloed. We watched in the book industry the buyers who would say they would get bonused on getting the lowest price per unit. And the easiest way to get the lowest price per unit is to order more and more. And we would go, but then it's going to go into your warehouse. And they would look at us and go, problem, I don't control the warehouse. And we'd go, we ask the warehouse guys, and they'd go, job security for us. And so this whole idea, we have to be looking at the end-to-end picture, seeing what things really cost. And that's where we come back to that. It's not the cost per unit, it's the cost per unit sold that is really the important metric there. So, you know, there's so many new ways we could control it through computers and automation and, you know, min-max theories, where you have certain periods of the year where you have 7 of one size of one color. And as the year goes on, that gets down to 1 or 2. If we can replace it in hours, then the risk of not having the inventory is eliminated. So
yeah, and that takes us to the automation, because you just mentioned that as if I'm going to next slide with automation, but this is a major part of the entire reshoring ability.
Yes, yeah, no question. Sharon, I would say I fell in love with sewing. I love what our sewers do. And so my goal has always been to automate absolutely everything from the time the designer has finished and created a base pattern till the time it's in the customer's hands. Other than the sewers actually sewing it, automate everything. And this plant is probably one of the most automated plants in the world. And plant number 2 will make this one look almost Stone Age. So it's developing so quickly. And I've always loved computers, and I've always loved automating equipment using computers. And that's what we will continue to do. And it's not taking out the wonderful creative side of the sewers or the designers. It's just automating everything in between.
Yeah. And Danny, can you add to that?
Yeah, of course. But first of all, I'd like to refer to what Kirby said in one sentence, because when I heard Kirby describing the automation that they had in OPM initially, it sounded like a dream. But when you actually see it working, it is that way. How the pieces move between the different sewers with the different skills and the different cues. And that's amazing to see. And I think that today, the ability for automation is at an inflection point. Software, robotics, simpler processes, even in chemistry itself, and we're, in Kornit are investing a lot in that, are there. The ability is there. When you look at a combined solution, and Kirby mentioned Gerber before, of design, patterns, PLM, the Kornit printer, cutter, sewing station, and the automation that Kirby put behind that, and the micro factory that becomes, that's amazing. The whole infrastructure and abilities are already there and are out there. Even when you look at our system, and I'm just giving Kornit as an example, of taking a piece of blank fabric, putting it through a one-step process and getting a finished product on the other side, and all that in a 9-meter system, which is fully automated, is ability to bring automation to the market. When you asked about, again, going back to statistics, and in this case, it's McKinsey, doing automation right is 40 to 70% cut in labor time. Kirby today is manufacturing in Alabama. That's not in India or in Bangladesh. That's in the US. And he's still able to make a good business out of it. And that's due to automation. So the story behind automation, the point where we are today, is quite amazing. Even Ricardo, I think you have an example just from the last 2 days.
Yeah. We had a customer, a big company. It's a promotional. They do textiles. It's all e-commerce website. Everything they do personalized. They were looking for. They came to us to ask if we have one of our customers to do some sort of masks and other products personalized. They were looking at also initially China, Asia, but they could have sourced it for a lower price, but they weren't looking for that. This is where the market is changing, and we referred to one customer who's very close to them, actually a couple of them, and the customer that earned that business, the only reason they earned it because they already had an automated system, software, where the company can just get that order from the website. They send a link to integrate a system to our customer with our system printer and the cutter, and they can just within 2 hours from that link, they will batch all the masks and all the products that they were going to print them within 2 hours, ship them the same day, and everything it was less labor on the order management. Everything was tracked. It was really, really cool. So I think that right there obviously earned him a lot of money and profits. And he called us back to thank us for it. But that's a great example that puts everything together as far as automation, customization, and everything.
So I want to. We're going actually to almost to the beginning, because I want to talk about the supply chain disruption. So Danny, it's actually everything is funneled at the end of the day to this point.
Yeah, and I think that today, hey, let's look at the macro for a second. COVID-19 is out there. That disrupted everything in the world. Trade wars are out there for quite a while, and they're also quite disruptive on our supply chains and how we supply them. Uncertainty today is at levels that I don't think we ever saw before on anything. Even economic depressions or whatever we had, were localized. This time it's global. Now tied back to what we just discussed, sustainability, self-expression, and what is changing there. The need for speed, reduction of inventory, automation, technology, where we are today. And the question is being asked, are we at a point of disruption? To me, the answer is quite clear, and not only to me. I think that if we look at it 3-5 years in time, look back at the days that we are on right now after COVID-19, and it will be clear that this is the time that the change really inflicted. It started before, but this is the time that it changed. Online has gone up, and it was supposed to go up in 3 years. It has gone out in a month on what it was supposed to go in forecast in 3 years. That's all disruption. When we ask today in surveys, Is nearshoring going to happen? The answer is an absolute yes from all respondents. And I'm talking about 6 O levels in different companies. By 2025, nearshoring will be much stronger, and local economy will, or local production will be much stronger than what it was before. And that brings to me maybe the most important question. Are we ready for it?
So,
Yeah.
Ricardo, anything you want to add to that? Before we
Just
are going to show the amazing place that Kirby has today already?
Yeah, go ahead. Just a quick comment. I was looking at an article this morning on the Chicago booth review, and they were talking about how supply chain managers, they've always been looking at the lowest cost per good. That's kind of what they're went to school for, and their goal is, and Kirby just mentioned the perfect example. He was always, he gave a sample of someone just ordering the least product, cost per product, even though they don't care about the inventory. But now I think after the COVID-19, these managers in the supply chain is they're going to put more value into responsiveness and quick delivery. So that's all I wanted to say in that article.
So I want first to share the video from Kirby's from OnPoint Manufacturing. Then Kirby will give us a little bit of explanation of what we saw. I know that we have a lot of questions, but we might need to answer them by email back to you guys if we will not have the time. But let's try to give Kirby first the ability to tell us about his So Kirby, can you tell us about your place, about OnPoint Manufacturer?
Yeah, so it's a factory that is as automated as it can be for the moment, and it what you see there is orders come in all day long, and they're put into a electronic bucket of fabric first, and then the color of the fabric, and then the Gerber cutters cut it, and each garment is put into one of those yellow totes, and the yellow tote then routes it to the right sewer at the right time that has the right color thread, that has the right qualifications to do that, and has the least amount of work in front of them to get it through the system faster. And it'll go around multiple times. A skirt goes around 14 times, and everything kind of works off that. And then it goes to a holding loop, and the loop goes around until the top and the bottom, or if a customer has ordered 4 or 5 pieces, it'll go around the loop until all 4 or 5 pieces are ready. And then it goes off to shipping and straight to the customer. And we're working on paths, we call it. And we've got 2 of them underway right now. And we've watched an order come in, go directly to the cutter, and get cut and so on and shipped out to the customer within hours. So it's all feasible. That was a custom-made garment, and so it's fun where it's going. As I said, plant number 2 will make this one almost look Stone Age compared to it. It'll have, as Ricardo was saying and Danny was saying, that the automation of moving shelves and robotics and conveyor belts, but it still comes down to the sewers will still be doing their beautiful work by hand of actually putting the garment pieces together. Everything else is automated. So
somebody actually asked how AI, artificial intelligence, is going to affect the process of automation. Do you have any?
I don't have a good answer on that one. I have an answer much more on AI will affect our buying patterns and our ability to predict and be ready for things faster. And now, will it get much faster than 12 hours? I don't think so, but we should be able to get the right material to the right place at the right time. And AI is just, we're just putting our toe in the water on that. It's got so far to go, and it's so exciting.
And one more question that I saw coming up is that I know that you have a lot of seamstresses, a lot of girls sewing for you. And we talked a lot about how automation is going to reduce manpower, but actually reshoring is about bringing jobs back home, right? So how do you see this, conflict?
Yes. So we're very privileged because we're starting with green fields. So we are starting off with a whole new way to do it. We are hiring as many people, as many sewers. And just so you know, we have 2 men sewers, which they're doing a great job. And so we're trying our best. I think labor is going to be our biggest problem, is finding qualified sewers and training them to our techniques. But we lose jobs in some area, but we're so much more effective. And it's all about bringing jobs back to local for local.
Yeah, I agree. Now I wanted, wait, we did already. So Danny, can you give us the aspect of digital printing and reshoring? Because at the end of the day, Kornit is doing digital printing, a little bit of this aspect.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the stuff that we discussed now is being tied in. And when you look at Kornit and our vision, it's creating a better world. That's what Kornit is all about. We talked about sustainability and sustainable solutions. We talked about bringing jobs and proximity, bringing it back home. We talked about making the process simple. And this is exactly what we're all about. When you look at our solution for digital printing, it's as simple as it can get. It's as automated as it can get. The one-step process of blank fabric on one side, a 9-meter system, and an output which is a finished good. And that is done as simple as can be, fully sustainable, without water used at all. Anything from one-offs, single meter, all the way to small batches and through large batches. Basically, it's a dye house done in one small platform on a small scale. And it can print on any fabric, and it can do all of it without using water. The outcome is probably the best there is, rivaling any other printing quality out there, both in hand fill, in rub, in wash, in light fastness, and of course in vividness. For us, that's completely fitting to our vision. And for many of our customers today who are going into the digital printing or expanding the digital printing space that they're in, those 2 visions of what we just discussed through the whole chain, of self-expression, of e-commerce, of sustainability, of inventory management, and what is happening in industry. In creating this simple solution for printing in the end, with the results that we're able to achieve, is a perfect match.
So let's share one more video of the Kornit. Oh, I thought I have it. No, I should have it. Yeah. So guys, I have two more questions to you, or maybe more, but I don't know if you will have the time. One question was, Danny, about the report that you mentioned about the millennials, that they're willing to pay 10% more, and it is tied to another question that is asking if really, at the end of the day, they are saying that they're willing to pay more, but they are not, when it comes to doing that, they cannot afford it. And if this now the crisis is a turning point in that area.
So I'll divide the answer into two parts. First of all, it's a quite large survey worldwide. You can look it up on Statista in this case. And yes, there is a move. But I'll ask a different question. Let's talk about organic vegetables as an example. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, people were not willing to pay more for organic, or not many would buy organic. Look at the space we're living today, where organic is being bought by a huge percentage of the population, and they're paying more for organic, be it in eggs, be it in vegetables, and so on and so on. It's a shift, it's a process, it's a journey, and it's happening. I know for a fact from our customers, quite a few of them, that the fact that our printing solution is sustainable with zero water waste in it, and it's all GOT certified and EcoPassport certified, is bringing them more money for their orders from their customers. So the answer is a definite yes.
Yeah. So I believe we have many more product-related questions here. So we will take them offline. We will answer people via emails and so on. But I would like, since we are exactly on time, I would like to thank my dear friends here in the panel. First of all, Kirby, for the amazing experience and sharing information. As one that has the privilege of visiting your site, it's amazing. Really, to see all these beams going from one place to the other is really fascinating. Ricardo, thank you so much. Danny, thank you for the knowledge, for the information. And again, guys, if anyone has any more questions, you are able to contact us at Kornit, and I'm sure that Kirby will also, if we will have questions, we can share with him. And I want to thank everybody for joining. I know that there were many, many disappointed people because apparently there is a limitation of 100 participants. Everybody that could not participate will get that recording by email, but there was a lot of people that wanted to participate, so we will share that also from Kornit. So again, thank you everybody. Thanks guys for participating.
Thank you and keep safe.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Keep safe, everybody.
Bye guys.
Bye-bye.